Hi everybody, it's 10 o'clock Monday morning in Murrurundi, Australia. I'm about to give you a video walk around of my current exhibition. It's on here at the Old Tattersalls Hotel in Murrurundi, which is my hometown. We're about to enter into the front door and I'll walk you through all the pictures in the exhibition and tell you a little bit about them. Okay, that's a look around at the setup, the physical setup of the show. So let's start with this work over here, Madonna Mary. Obviously it's got a bit of a religious theme. As you can see, the Mary has a halo around her head and she emanates light. This image up here I call Thank You, Emi Ito. Emily Ito was a critical social justice activist, an American-Japanese woman who first called me a racist because I was very comfortable with using the word kimono to describe a loose-fitting, wide-sleeved coat. And she thought that made me a very horrible person whom she would have described as a racist. That was in 2017, and she set me off on a journey to discover all about who the woke were. The image below the mantelpiece is actually the last piece I finished for the show. It's still unframed, and this work I call Dance de la Robes, and it's a tribute to the Ukrainian textile artist Sonia Delaunay, who was a very significant woman designer in the 1920s, 30s, 40s. And this is based on a black and white pencil sketch she made called Dance de la Robes. And I've interpreted it in colour in that image there. So those two pieces, one on the mantle, one below. Next to that, I have this mauve Elizabeth. And on my little description next to it, I say, in many exhibitions over decades, I've paid tribute to the British Queens named Elizabeth. And this is my current tribute to the Queen's Elizabeth, because she's got a very regal bearing and she's wearing a very classic sort of 16th century style garment. Okay, so that's Mauve Elizabeth. Next to her, this work is called Flaming Redhead. Sorry, I'm getting a bit of strong light on the edge of that. Can't be helped, I'm afraid. So all the works are collages with some acrylic painted areas painted in acrylic paint as well. So this background here is comprised of torn up pieces of my gelatine printed papers, and they've all been sealed down there with a couple of layers of varnish. That's why you're getting a little bit of light coming off the surface there. Right, moving around the corner. Here we have 60s Cool. All these images are on masonite board and they all measure 60 by 90 centimetres. I really enjoyed doing this image. It was one of the last 3 or 4 I did that I completed for the show, and by that time I was seeing very clearly how the influence of my teenage years, my formative years in the 60s and 70s, was very much coming out in my art. This lady, of course, is wearing a garment we used to call a kaftan, a very popular, loose-fitting kind of a garment from the 60s. I actually wonder if Emi Ito might have a problem with those big wide sleeves. No one's allowed to refer to them as kimono sleeves now, in case we are revealing ourselves to be white supremacists. Okay, next to this is this image. The label's fallen off here. This one also very redolent of that 60s, 70s era. These ladies are wearing garments that are very much of the style of that era. I call this image Keep On Swinging. So let's get those faces in here. There they are. And they're looking very self-possessed, looking out there, projecting their comfort with the statement that they're making about who they are. Okay, we might have some problems with this next image because it's covered with glass. This one I call Parrot Whisperer. This was actually one of the first works I did about 4 or 5 months ago when I was experimenting with using my gelatine printed papers in a collage. Okay, so this one's not for sale. I put it in here because I thought it was kind of relevant to the rest of the works. Also, for anyone curious, those 2 parrots featured at the front there are Australian native parrots. They're eclectus parrots. The green parrot is the male eclectus, and the red and blue is the female eclectus. And my husband and I keep these birds as pets. We have 3 eclectus parrots in a large outdoor aviary. They're very beautiful and quite unusual in their extreme dimorphism, that the males and the females really don't look like they're from the same species. Next to here, Cecilia. Okay. So these parts of the image, the hair and the little part of the top of the garment there, are from my gelatine stenciled prints, and the whitish area up above there, which was intended to look a bit like a mask, is stenciled directly on. It's sort of got a feathery look about it. Right. Next image, this one called Guinevere. Okay, I'm just going to segue over here for a moment onto this little table where I have a few products for sale. I've had some cards printed with images from the show, and my little catalogue book here showing all the works in the show. And here I have a garment on a stand. I've included this here because many people who've come to the exhibition and have seen my work in the past have been taken aback, because normally I'm a textile artist. I don't usually do 2-dimensional work or paint. My last exhibition of purely paintings was in 2012, at Muswellbrook Art Gallery. So it's been 10, 12 years since I've actually presented an exhibition of primarily paintings. So this coat is much more typical of the kind of work I would normally do. This has been stenciled and free motion embroidered, stitched, patchworked, and it's all made out of upcycled fabrics. So this is in here just to show those people who are surprised that I'm not presenting textile art, that I'm still going to be doing it. Okay, moving over here, this image called Isadora. This absolutely fantastic print was one of my favourite gelatine prints, and I think it makes a beautiful reference to a piece of flowing cloth worn like a cape. So all of these sections at the bottom are from the gelatine prints, and of course I've painted the face. And we'll move sideways here to a rather different work again. This one I call The Plait. It's a very kind of geometric image on a plain black background. All right, now I'm going to have to proceed down the hallway a little bit here to show you this picture here called Lotus. Has a rather sort of Egyptian feel to it, I thought, which is why it got called Lotus. And next to here is anime. This image I describe as being inspired by the iconic Japanese American actress from the 1940s, Anna May Wong, and it's based on a black and white photograph that I came across from that era, and I've interpreted it in this rather flamboyant way. Now I'm just going to go sideways to this table here where I have got a few things for sale showing my beadwork, my wearable pieces, necklaces, bracelets. This is something I really enjoy to do too because I'm very much a detail person, and of course it's very much a textile art tradition. It is in fact a form of embroidery, doing beadwork. And some of the other items along here, earrings, a necklace, now behind this display I have two of the cloth figures that were actually in my July exhibition at Timeless Textiles in Newcastle, and I've included those. This one here is jade because people who know me as primarily as a textile artist like to still see these works, these textile pieces. These sculptural figurative works refer back to the cloth doll making. That was my great passion throughout the 1990s into the early 2000s. This one, Grevillea, is quite tall. She's nearly 1 metre high, 95 centimetres high. And over here, actually back to near the entrance, are some smaller works that were actually experimental works I did in the few weeks that I was kind of investigating this format of using my gelatine printed papers to make collaged images. Now, so many people who have visited the exhibition have asked me about this technique because they don't know what it refers to. So I brought along these things here to show people. This is up here, this clear pad up here is actually the quite large gelatine plate that I use for printing on, that all these prints in the show have been made from. And there's a few papers down there and some paint and a roller I bought to explain to people what the process is. Okay, next to this work, which is called Frazzled, we have Showgirl. And here we have Any Other Day. Now these works, unlike the larger works in the show, are actually on canvas. So this one's propped up with a window behind it, and there's a little bit of light coming through here, through the canvas. And next to this is a work that is also not for sale, but I included because it has some relevance to the show, and I'll show you what's written on the note in a moment so that you understand why I've included it. Oh, there's a train going by there. Murrurundi has a train station. That train will be going to either Sydney or Tamworth. Okay, this is a painting. It's not a collage, it's purely just an acrylic painting on board. I did this painting in 1999, and the explanatory note here says, the painting was based on a 1912 black and white photograph of the male ballet dancer Vaslav Nijinsky from the ballet Russes. He's dancing the lead role from a ballet called The Blue God. I wanted to include this painting from 1999 because it shows my consistent interest over decades in clothing, gender and performance. Okay, so we're nearly at the end of this little tour. My last little closing thing here, I'm just going to go outside to focus on my statement about the exhibition. So if anyone is interested, okay, that's a cattle truck because I live in a rural town, and that truck is quite possibly on the way out to a farm to pick up some cattle to take to an abattoir. And it had a very distinctive odour of urine. And I think this is part of why I'm very comfortable with being a TERF, living in a rural area where animal husbandry is one of the main industries. Here I live amongst people who farm animals, which means they grow meat by getting animals to reproduce. They know all about the reality of the fact that mammals, that group of animals that Homo sapiens belong to, mammals reproduced through male and female sexes. So it would be a very useful thing indeed if some of these farmers could trans that half of the herd that's the wrong sex into the opposite sex. However, it's not going to happen ever, because mammals are born either male or female, and they might make claims, but the reality is they cannot change sex. There is only male and female, and that is how mammals reproduce. All right, everybody, so that was a little bit of a sort of spontaneous interlude at the end there. Well, almost the end. I've just realised I didn't show you these two works. Nearly missed them out completely. This is flowering. This is a tribute to my garden. I love growing things. I'm very fortunate that living in this little rural town, we have a large block where I can grow many things. It's really important to me to come out in the natural world and put my bare feet on the soil and literally ground myself. So here we go. Here is actually the last work. This one is called Phillida, and it's quite abstract, kind of evocation of a rather surrealistic looking woman just wearing a very kind of abstract concoction of a piece of headwear. Phillida. All right, so we had a strange little interlude there in the middle where I had to include the empty cattle truck in my exhibition. So I'll just draw to a close, going back to Guinevere. This is a really strong image, and I'm very pleased to say somebody has bought this work. So, goodbye, that's it.